So we've got 2 minutes to go before we go live in today's session. Can everybody hear me? I hope so. Got a minute to go until we go live. Welcome everybody for joining us today for our webinar on creating interactive forms. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and will be available via our live page and also be posted through to our YouTube channel, and we'll make sure that the link is available to you should you wish to review it again afterwards. So we're just going to give people some time just to join us, and then we'll be able to start the session. If there are any people in the room already, if you can just give us some indication on how you feel about this particular session and what you plan on seeing and learning out of this. So we'll give it a moment or so. Okay. So as I mentioned, this recording will be available to everybody afterwards. So please feel free to come back and like our page and to like our YouTube channel at Magenta SA, where all our webinars will be posted together with any other tips and tricks. So let's get started, and let's have a look at the InDesign portion of the creating interactive forms. So I hope you can all hear me clearly. And usually when people create forms, they don't always start from within the Acrobat environment or the InDesign environment. We do understand that often your forms could start from Excel or from Word or from the Google Office suite, for example, like Google Docs or Google Sheets. But today we're going to look at it from a design perspective, from the designer using InDesign and how they could go and from within the InDesign environment already start to add the various interactive form fields. So in the past, what you would have done is you would have created your design, your form, whatever it may have been. And then you would have converted it to a PDF, usually the smallest file size. And then in Acrobat, you would have gone and automatically created these particular form fields. What we're going to do today is we're going to start that process already here within InDesign itself, because InDesign allows you to add interactivity, but for today we're just going to focus on the form elements. So an important panel to open is going to be in the window menu, to come down here to interactive, and you will see that there is a new panel name called forms and buttons. Sorry, I just want to put my phone off. I forgot to do that before we started. Right, so from this particular panel, you will see that we have this new panel that can float. If you are creating quite a number of forms, what I would recommend that you do is that you dock it to the side of your screen. Now, in my document, I have got my design on one layer. So I've got two different layers here, one being the actual design, and the second layer on top of that is going to be the various form fields that I want to create and change. This makes life a lot easier because normally when you create a form, you never get it right the first time. Usually what you have to do is to come in here and make changes, and we don't want to have to make changes here, then go back to Acrobat and redo all the content, the form fields like we've done before. Usually copying and pasting is a quick way around, but this is more suitable. Right, so the idea is to, for every single form field that we've got, we are going to create a text field. So I'm going to take my text tool over here, and I'm going to draw out the form field where I would like it to appear. Right. What I'm also going to do is when I select that particular text frame, in this buttons and forms panel, we are going to come to the type option here. And in this type option, we are going to choose what type of form field it is. Please note, if you don't have all the options that are available here, you can build a combination of your own and get them to work that way. Or you can always go into Acrobat and do some more changes to the properties, which I will show you after this session. So we're going to start off with a text field, because in this block here, we are going to want them to actually type their name. So we've got text field. Just below that, that is going to be the name of the field that we want to have. It is vitally important that you take the time and you name these various fields, because at a later stage, when you either want to change the tab order, or if you want to do calculations, depending on the type of form or document it is that you're trying to make an interactive form, having the name will make life a lot easier, especially when you want to clear the fields. You're not going to remember, text field 1 or 2 or whatever that was. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to call this one F name for the first name. We're going to have that over there. And then we're going to not put any actions on this particular form field. There's nothing that it needs to do right now, so we're not actually going to do that. A little bit lower here, we've got an option that it's hidden until triggered. So if you've got a couple of options for them to say, all right, do you want option A or option B? Then you can go and have them hidden. And as soon as they click that particular checkbox, it will become available to them. Right, and then there is some PDF options if yours is not already expanded. Here are your PDF options, and if you click this, you can go and put a description. Remember, a description will give the person instructions on what it is that they need to do here. So we're going to say, just enter first name. Right, and then you can decide whether this form field will be printable, whether it is a required field, so I'm going to mark it as required, whether it is a password field. This, of course, will give them the little asterisks so that it will hide the information. Is it a read only? Is it a multi-line? So if we're doing something like an address or where they need to add a comment and we need more than one line, we could always go and have it as a multi-line. In my example, I'm not going to choose that. If you're going to make it scrollable, so let's say, for example, we've just got a name field and we're going to get them to put their full name. So maybe it's Bob Peter Jones or Fanamava or whatever it is. And we want to be able to scroll the box, especially like if it's larger multi-line box, you could make it scrollable. Just be cautious that sometimes in Acrobat, scrollable fields will only print what is displayed within that box. It won't show you all the text that is available. So this particular box, I don't need to make scrollable. Now, when creating Acrobat forms in Acrobat, usually the form field will have a form size of auto, right? Or in here, it might have a size of auto. Please be cautious when you use auto because auto will make the font height automatically the height of the box that you are creating. And in this particular example, that is not what I want to do. So I am going to force it to be 12 points. Also, I am not going to use Minion Pro. Maybe I want to use a different font that is available here. And if you're not going to embed the font with the PDF, you can always use a simple font that most people would have on their machines, like Arial or Calibri or one of those, depending on what it is that you want to do. And of course, I don't want it to be in bold. Right. You can then go and do your other form fields as well. You do have the ability to select multiple form fields. So I did add 2 form fields here, and you will be able to go and change that into the field that you want. If you convert your basic paragraph style to the default font that you use in your organization, then you can ensure that the text boxes that you create will automatically be the size that you want it to be. Right, so I've already done these. I've already named them name and surname. It doesn't matter whether it's capital or not. Right. For this particular little block here, you can put in another text box. So you can just drag a text box if you need to. Of course, make sure that you select it and you make it, because it says just initial, so we're just going to make that a text field as well. And we're not going to make it scrollable, and I'm just going to change this to Arial. Right. You know InDesign, I'm sure you've worked in it numerous times, but you can go in here and you can go and duplicate form fields if you need to. Sorry, my boxes are not working today. Right, so you could have fields. Just remember, if you are duplicating fields, just change the name, because you don't want to have 2 text boxes that are the same. If they've got the same name, whatever you type into the one is going to type in the other one. So I'm just going to call this one agree. Just press enter for it to accept it. And this one here, I'm just going to put there don't agree. Ideally, you want your form names to be one word. So best practice, what I normally would do is have a capital, underscore, agree, or you could just have it separated by capital letters. This is just good practice, makes life easier for you. Right, then we're going to go and look at some of the little text boxes over here. I'm not going to do the entire form, but I just want to show you here and there some of the options that are available. Right. So let's say, for example, in this example, we want to have the method of communication, either a text message or email. So I don't want them to choose both. So even though I'm going to go and draw my little text boxes here, right? When I select them, oh, sorry, I didn't draw that out. Let's select that. Come on. Okay. So I've got a little box there. You can come here and put a type, and you'll see that there's an option just for those of you that don't know. Many of you may already know this, but you've got an option between a checkbox and a radio button. Please note they are not the same. Think of a radio button, either it's on or off. So you can either choose one or the other. As soon as you need more than one option, for example, how would you like to receive this via text and via email and via social media, then you would go and make a checkbox. That means they can go and check the lists that they want. So in this instance, I want to make it a radio button. Now, it is important to know that group names need to be the same because you're choosing an option between the one or the other. Are you standing or are you sitting? So therefore, I've got my little block there. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to just call this one communication. Right? And you will see this particular section here is when they check it, what must it look like? When they don't check it, what it must look like. So you can go into either mode and decide what the options are going to be. So maybe in this particular mode, maybe I want to have a square. Maybe in this mode, I want it to be clear. I'm quite happy with the little dots for now, right? And what I'm also going to do is you have an option here that says selected by default. That means if you want them to automatically choose the method of communication that they want. And then, so here is the name of the button. Sorry, I forgot to type in here. Let me just be on the on state. I'm just going to call this communication. Right? Press enter to accept it, right? And at the bottom here, where it says button value, this is going to be the choice when the person sends the information back to you. If you want to compile it into a CSV file, for example, using Acrobat, what must the value of that particular be? So I'm going to call this one text. Right? And then for the second one, I'm just going to duplicate this little button here. I'm just going to duplicate it. Right? But for this one, so they're going to have the same name at the top. They're both going to be called com. But for the second one, I'm not going to call the button value text. I'm going to change it to email. Right. So you could see here that I've got the one or the other. They've got the same name for now, but their values are different. Okay, one's text, one's email. Right, let's go down here. Let's do the next one. Let's maybe change this to black and white. And let's go and do a little list box now. So list boxes are going to be different. They are going to have different names. So I'm going to make this one a checkbox. Right? If it's on or if it's off, so maybe under off, I'm going to make it clear. And when it's on, it's going to be black. I'm going to give it a name here. So let me give this one the value of reminders. And at the bottom here, the value is going to be yes for if it is checked. And if it is off, it's going to be no if you want to change it. Right. And I'm just going to duplicate that as well. Okay, and I'm just going to change the names of this one. So this one I'm going to call billing. And this one here, I'm just going to do reviews. Right, so I'm quite happy with my radio buttons and my check boxes. The next thing I'm going to do here, of course, you've got input text boxes. You could go and put those, so those would be exactly the same as these at the top there, no problem there. But maybe one of the things I want to change, just to show you as an example, is perhaps I want to have maybe not office name, but office location. Right, so again, we can go and do a little text box. Right, and this time you will see that you've got an option of a combo box or a list box. So a combo box will allow you to list the various items that are available to you over here, right? Whereas a list box, right, is slightly different because it will allow you to have multiple selections. So a list box would be if I had a larger area and I wanted to physically display all the options that were visible, whereas a combo box is actually a drop-down menu that I can then go and choose. So ideal for short narrow places where you need to put those. So let me just call this one location, right? And I'm going to just put them, let's say, for example, Johannesburg, right? And I'm going to add it. Maybe I've got Cape Town. Add another one, and maybe let's do, for example, let's do Windhoek or London, or it could be whatever it is that you needed. Right, so you'll see I have my names listed here. I do have the option to sort them, so they will be sorted alphabetically, and whichever the one is that you select, usually that is going to be the one that is going to be there by default. I usually like to have select one as my topmost choice, and of course you can then take the sort option off and move them in the order that you want them to be. So a couple of options that are available, and of course I needed to change this to Arial. Right, signature blocks. So if you are doing digital signatures using Acrobat, this would be the ideal block to use. You can use the signature option here. Let's just select that a moment. Right, but what you will notice is it doesn't give you the option for a digital signature, which I will show you where in Acrobat you can just go and switch from one to the other on how to do that. Right, so I'll leave it as that. Let's make the signature field 1. And last but not least, I just want to quickly put a date in here just to show you. I'm not going to make it a large field. Let me just make it a normal field. And let me just make it white as a fill. Right. And I'm just going to make that a text field for now. Right. Once you've got your field, you could put a button on there to get them to submit it if you want to. So let's make a little button. I'm just going to make a little square button for now. Let's do this here. Let's maybe make it a different shade. Let's make it blue. Right, so when you are selecting your buttons, remember there are various states to your buttons. Let me just open my option. I closed it accidentally. So when you choose this, let's just quickly add submit to this, or reset, or whatever it is. Reset. Let's make that text white. Let's maybe center it. And of course we could center it vertically as well. And of course we're going to convert it to a button. Your buttons could be anything. They could be pictures, they could be solid shapes. It really doesn't matter. And again, here you're going to see the various options. So what is the normal button going to look like? If I click on roll over, then you can just go and change the color. Let's maybe make that cyan. So you can see I've got both states of the button here. If you don't put anything inside the button and you just use a placeholder box, this will give you an invisible button, which is ideal, and you could place it over anything and everything that you wanted to do. Right, and I'm quite happy with this, but now I want to start adding an action. So I'm going to call this button reset. Right, enter. When I say event, you've got on click, on roll over, roll off, focus. Focus means if they've tabbed into that block. Blur means if they've left the block. So I'm going to say here on click if I know it's just online in a browser. But if they're going to be using it on their mobile device, maybe I want it to be on tap. So I'm going to keep it on that one. And then I'm going to choose the action. So this means when they click on the button or tap on the button, what must happen? And you'll see this little plus has got a little drop down arrow next to it. So you can click on that. And then you've got some created options that are available. Some of them will give you actions when you're creating a EPUB or publish online. We are looking for the PDF form options that are available here. So I'm going to use the clear form as my command. So when I click on this button, it is automatically going to reset and clear the form that I have. Right, and then I'm going to do just one more. Let's just rename this and submit. And I want the normal mode to also be submit. And I want to call this one submit. Right, so just remember the naming of the documents are really important. Remember, if you duplicate anything, remember to check your actions. So I'm going to just remove this existing action and say OK, and I'm going to add a new one, and I'm going to choose the option here that says submit form for now. And of course, you could choose where you wish to submit it to. And if you wanted to go via email, you could use here mail to colon and then put in there the email address that you are going to use to submit it. Right, our document is now ready. It is now available in InDesign. So should our manager or whoever the client is request that we make changes, we just need to move the text around and the frames around that we've done for our fields to allow for those particular changes. Right, I'm now going to go and make a PDF of this. So when I go to export, you will see that there are two options. There is interactive PDF and there is a print PDF, right? If you choose the print PDF option, I'm just going to give this an example of print. There are your different options at the top here that you could use. So you could use smallest file size, but the things that you need to take note of are these here at the bottom, okay? So do I still want hyperlinks to work? Do I want to include non-printing options, which is important because the form fields are non-printing options, all right? And then any interactive elements do not include or include appearance. So can you see this is giving me a restricted type of PDF when it comes to the forms, right? So, and also just remember that my image compression quality will be low here. So that would be something that you would need to change if you were choosing this as a particular option, because we don't want the graphics in the background to pixelate. Right, so I'm just going to export that one as an option for you, just to show you. Right, we'll come back to this in a moment. And then the last one we're going to do, if I just export this one as well, I am going to choose interactive PDF. And I'm just going to call this one interactive. And you will see here that I've still got all my pages. I can do the width or whatever it is that I want. I can include layers in there if I need it to. So that's an option. You've still got your image quality. And you'll see here that there are no options for non-printable options. Right, so let's just export that. Right, so we've got the two documents. I'm just going to minimize InDesign for now. And we're going to look at Acrobat specifically. Both documents have opened up in Acrobat. You can see these are showing me the little blue coloring. This is determined not by you, but by the user either in Reader, Acrobat Reader, or in the professional version. If they go into their preferences, they can change the color. If you change the color, this is not going to affect the way that the users are going to see it. So here you can see it says forms, but even if I change that to maybe a little bit more purplish kind of color, right? And I say, okay, it's changed it here, but if I send you this form, whatever your settings will be are going to be the ones that are going to be determined. Right, so just be wary of that. Right, and also just take note that some people might have that switched off. Right, so if we look at these two documents side by side, I just want to view them together. Let's tile them vertically. Right. So the one on the right-hand side was the one that we did interactive, okay? And the one on the left-hand side is not. So all that work that we've done in creating the interactive form fields, if I save it as just a normal print PDF, that is not going to assist and work at all. If you're using the file print to PDF, that won't assist either. Right, so I'm just going to close that one. And by the way, even though I am working on an Apple Mac, it's exactly the same if you are working in the Windows environment. Actually, let me quickly go and open the print side. Sorry, let's go here. Recent. Right. So for those of you that are totally new to creating interactive forms and have not pre-created the form fields in InDesign as shown in the first half of this video, then for you to be able to make this an interactive document with form fields, you are going to go to the Tools panel here at the top, Tools panel. And if you come to the section that says Forms and Signatures, you'll see that there is an option over here, Prepare Form. Right, so you will just click on this. It will ask you for the document that you are using. So you could either use your existing opened PDF, you could use one from a scanner, you could go and create a new blank document and actually use the form field elements to go and create the form. Right, so we've already got a form here, right? Now, this is important. This document requires signatures. Okay. Now, if you are not going to be using Adobe Acrobat Sign to sign your documents, do not check this box. If you want to use digital signatures, that means you use a digital certificate to sign your document, you're going to keep this unchecked. If you are using Adobe Acrobat Sign, you will check this. The reason for this being is that the form field options that are available to you will be different. So don't just look at your form and say, yes, I need a signature on there, and then come and tick this, right? Then, do you want auto detection to be switched on? So this means Acrobat is going to try and find the form fields on your document. I'm going to leave it on now, and I'm just going to go and say start. So it's going to be easier for it to find the form fields because of the little squares that I have made available, or the little underlines, or the little blocks that you have got. All right. You will see that it is not always 100% accurate in doing that. So, but it does save you a little bit of time. You might have to delete a couple of fields and you might need to add a couple of fields. Right. The reason why it didn't pick this form field up is it was confused with the way that the writing was below. So I'd have to just add a new one. Okay. Important thing to notice, look at the form field icons at the top of your screen. Right, so if we look at these, you will see that if we look at the first one, this is to select a field, a form field, one of these. This one would be to edit the document, so maybe you made a spelling mistake somewhere and you need to quickly go and edit or change something. This is to add additional text box. That's physical text on your document. The next one over here would be to create these form fields, and I'll show you that. We've got check boxes, radio buttons, we've got list boxes, and we've got combo boxes, and we've got buttons, images, date fields, and digital signature fields that are available. And then if you've got additional software, the 3D scanning QR code effects. Right. If you've done this and you actually needed to have a Adobe Sign form. So this could either be in the beginning when you said prepare form and you checked the little box, or you unchecked it and it should have been checked. Not to worry, here where it says tools. This will give you the opportunity to switch between the signing forms. So I'm just going to quickly switch now just to show you. And I'm going to say next and OK. And you will notice now that here at the top, I have different options that are available. So here I've got still these ones up at the beginning were still the same. But now you will see that my signature blocks look different. I've got signature, the signer's email address. I've got initials. I've got the person's name, their company, right? Their title, what their email address is, what the date is, right? So just remember that whichever one you chose does not matter. You can always come to the little toolbox here where this hammer and spanner is and convert it back to an Acrobat form at any particular point in time. Okay. So if we look at some of these things, so I'm going to just take a text box just to show you here quickly, and you can drag out a box. I'm just going to make it a little bit narrow and a little bit shorter. Right. Straight away, it's going to prompt you for a name for that particular field, right? And whether it's required, and you would be able to go into the properties of that particular field. Right, so you'll see you've got a couple of options over here. So for those of you that have watched this from the beginning when we did it in InDesign, and there were some options that are not available for you, for example, creating a date field. Yes, we could have gone and made an interactive field. So let's just quickly jump here. All right, if I come down a little bit. So this was the one that was done in InDesign. Here's my little drop-down menu box. Can you see here was a date box? Okay, so I would still come, if I want to edit fields, I'd come to Tools, and I'd click on Prepare Form. It's not going to ask you to prepare because it's already seeing your form elements. Okay, so now you can click on any particular field and come in here and change the information that you want. Please, if you type in these boxes, just say enter. Because if you go to the next field without pressing enter, sometimes it may not accept the change that you have made. Okay. So for this particular form field, I want to have a date. So I could come here to format. That was not an option that was available in the InDesign side. And I could say format, and I could come down here and I could go and choose date. Okay. And I can choose the type of date or date and time, or I can use custom and go and make my own date format that was available there. Okay. Now, most people will, once they've made a change to the box, they will go and click on the close button and then go to the next field. Okay. So to quickly get to that properties panel, you could either right click and go to properties. You could come to the more option here and go to show field properties. Okay, either way, it is the same option that is available. Okay, and for this particular one, I'm going to just come here to appearance, and I don't want it to be bold. I'm just going to make this Arial, quite a long list. Just make it in Arial, and I'm going to leave it at 12. I just wanted to show you what auto, can you see auto is really big? And the more you type, the font size is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So if you haven't made a form field multi-line, or you haven't allowed it to scroll, it's going to reduce that font size. And if your people filling in your form are going to put too much text, then it's going to be invisible, illegible. Right, so that is why I mentioned rather setting a specific size. Okay, now, can you see here I've got multiple fields that I need to check or change or do something to, right? So let's just do this one here. I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, right? Call this one birth. And you can see here I've got the properties option, okay? If I did not have the fields colored already, I can come and choose a border color or a fill color. Think of the border like a picture frame, the outer edge, and the fill would be the solid color inside the picture frame, right? You can choose line styles or whatever you want. Because I've already got the white little squares there, I'm not going to do that. Right. Then position would be where you want to position it. But because I drew it out, it is already positioned properly. But I could use this to come and change the width and the height. So if I know, all right, it needs to be, let's say, 5 millimeters or 6 millimeters in height for every single field, I can come and set it over here. Now, you don't always have to click the close button and go to the next field and click the close button and go to the next field. If you hold down your shift key as I am selecting fields, so I can select all of these. If you look really closely, you will see this has got a light blue border and this one has got a dark blue border. So the one that is dark blue is going to be the one that is the parent or the main field that all the other fields are going to mimic or copy. Right. So these that are light blue, if you need to change it, just hold down your shift key and change it to the particular field that you want it to be. Right. Now I can go to the likes of the appearance. Right. You will see that they've all got different fonts. So I could go and make this one Arial for all of them. Sorry, the list is really long here. Arial. So now they're all Arial. They're all 12 point. The font is all black color that I want. So I've saved myself some time. Right. If I need them all to be the same height, I could now go and adjust the height. But I'm going to show you another trick in a moment. Right. Under options here, I could align them all to the left. Right. You could do spell checking. Right. For these particular fields, I don't really need to spell check them, so I'm going to take them off. As soon as I take spell check off, I could put a password. That means it's going to have the little asterisks or the dots. I can go and make them multi-line. I could scroll long text if I needed to, so I'm not going to do that. Allow for rich text formatting. So if somebody did want to use underline or did want to use bold, I would generally just use this in a comment field or an information block for more detail. I wouldn't use it in the other fields that are available there. Okay. If I needed to limit the number of characters, like a telephone number or an ID number, I could go in, or a postal code, you could say limit, and you could limit it to the number of characters. Even though my block is this length, it is going to limit it to the number of characters. If your design has got little squares, right? So let me just go back to InDesign a moment. Let's say, for example, I'm just going to draw it at the bottom here. Let's say I have got a block that looks like this. And I have gone and added the little lines in between. And let's just duplicate that a moment. Okay, so let's say I've got a little block that looks something like this, right? When you are creating the field, right, rather just make one text box over the entire option and convert that to a text block, right, using your interactive buttons and forms. Let me just select it a moment. Make it a text field. Then when you come into InDesign, into Acrobat, you are going to use this option over here where it says comb. Think about it like a hair comb. It's got the little gaps in between where your hair goes through, right? So that means it's going to do blocks. So if it's an ID number, you're going to divide it into 13 or 10, or if it's a postal code, into 4. Right? That is easier on the people that need to fill out the form. There's nothing more frustrating than going when you need to fill in a block like that and pressing the digit or the number and then pressing tab to get to the next tiny little box and the next tiny little box and the next tiny little box. Right. But the combing option is what's going to give you that functionality. Can you see there? Right. So I'm just going to uncomb those right now. Sorry. Let's maybe make it 1. Sorry, it's because I've got multiple blocks selected that it's giving me those little issues there. Okay, let me just undo those. Right, another way to select more than one block is to click and drag over the blocks so that you can go and manipulate them and change the formatting or the actions depending on what you want to do. What you will notice is that I do not have in this block the formatting, right? So I can only format one block at a time, and there's number, percentage. You can even do special ones if you like a zip code or a telephone number. If you go to arbitrary mask, you can go and create your own. Right, so let's just leave this. Last thing I want to show you here, if you've got 2 fields and you want to make them the same size, if you come here to the top, this is where you can align them. So let's align it to the left maybe. Let's maybe go and match the size. So here, this one would be the height, the width and height. So let's do that. So now I know they are exactly the same size. And I can then go and maybe align it to the left again. Perfect. Right, really easy to be able to do. If you've got combo boxes, you can just double click to get to your properties, and under the options here, you can then go and determine, do I want a checkbox, or do I want a star or a square or a cross, or whatever the option is that you want to use. All right, so I'm going to do a little check there. And maybe this one here also do a little. I'll leave that one, the default. Let's maybe leave them as circles. Right. And then the same thing would apply with your check boxes. You've got all your various options that are available to you over here. Okay. List boxes are the same. So if you go under options, you can see what your options are. And of course, you can select the default one that you want the people to be able to see. Right. This is a signature block. And if I go under signed, you can see here nothing happens, or mark fields as read only. And you could say just these fields and just pick. Can you see why it's important to name the fields that you want to use? Right. I would not mark all of them as read only, because you don't want, if you've got another signature block, for it to lock that so somebody else can't sign. Right. So rather just go and change the options that you want. So I'm going to say just these, pick, and I'm just going to say first name, middle name, and maybe just the surname down here. Okay. And of course, if I come to reset, double click, and I come to actions, you'll see it says reset form. If I come to the submit button and I click on the word submit, you will see here that I can go in and edit. Right. Please know that Acrobat is fully JavaScriptable. So if you're going to be doing it via not a mobile phone, but a web form or something along those lines, you can use JavaScript. And you can determine in what format you would like the information to come back to you. Just the form data field information, HTML, extended, FDF, or PDF. Okay, so you've got a couple of options that are available. Here is the email address. If you have got a server that it needs to go to, of course you can go and select that. I'm just going to say okay. Sorry about the coughing. And here is the preview. And now we can just check. This was the one that was done from InDesign. Right, you can put your birth date in here if you need to. You can put your initials, you can type. Right. You can do your little check boxes. Can you see it's only choosing one? You can do your little tick boxes, your check boxes. Right. And of course, your drop down list. Right. Here I've got a date field, so I can actually choose the date. And if I needed to sign this document, I could then go and apply my digital signature. Right, I'm just going to show you quickly, because I've got 5 minutes left, how to gather your information back together. So I'm just going to go save to this form. I'm just going to go File, Save As. And I'm just going to call this one on the desktop. Let's call this one Carla. Right, I'm just going to open up the original one again. Sorry, I'll just do two forms. I'm just going to click on the reset button. Reset. Can you see all my fields are now blank? So I know that works. So let's go and call this one Bob Jones. Let's call him Bob J. Jones, whoever he may be. Whatever his date of birth is, maybe he does not agree. Let's say down here, maybe he wants emails and he doesn't want any of that, and maybe he is from Cape Town, and his date when he signs it, let's maybe say it was yesterday, and he could sign it. Right, I'm just going to save this file, save as. I'm just going to call this one Bob quickly. And I'm just going to, I just wanted to show you here, if I say submit, it's saying here that it's going to open my email address, and I could click continue, and it will send it through. Mine's linked to Gmail for this account, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to close these a moment. I just want to open interactive. Okay, I'm just going to clear this form quickly. Okay, so it is reset and ready to go. So when you want to distribute a form for other people to complete, right? You will see here in the bottom corner, there is an option that says distribute. And by clicking on that, right, it's going to prompt you to save it, right? I usually, let's just put it on the desktop. Let's maybe call this one interactive, and I'm going to go and say save. And you can choose, do you want to do it via email? Do you want to do it via an internal server? You can decide. I'm just going to say via email, and I'm going to save a copy because I'm going to email it later. Look at the end here. You will see that it is put distributed at the end, so you know what the document is that you are using. Okay, you can get it to track who's filled it out and who hasn't if you want to. Right. So if I open up, you will see I have a distributed document and I have an interact responses document. This distributed one you can email or put on your website or put it on your local server internally within your office, and doesn't matter whether people have Reader or the full version of Acrobat, they can complete this particular document, right? And email it back to you or put the responses wherever you are saying that they need to put the responses, right? But the important part is, how do I get that information back? So I am going to open up the responses file. All right, it does not look very interesting at all, but I do have the option over here to go and add all the responses from the people that I needed to get the information from. So I could go and say add, and I could go and choose Bob and Carla and open it. So I've got 2 responses to this particular document. By the way, if you're using Acrobat, the DC, there's no limitation to if you were using the older version, so you're not limited to the number of responses. Then I can say OK, and you will see that all the information that they filled out. Now, I didn't put this in the correct order. So let's quickly go to Acrobat. My tab order, where's Acrobat? Sorry, Acrobat's just closed because I'm in a different screen now. But my tab order was incorrect. That's why this has come in slightly different. So if I'd corrected my tab order, they would have been correct. Here you can see who agrees, who doesn't, how I want their communications, what information. So each one of these names was the name I gave the field. So there's another reason to see why it is important to name your form fields. So I've got the information in here. So if you can hang on just 1 more minute before you go off, I want to show you that you can export all of them or only the selected ones, and you can export it out either as XML or as a CSV file. And I'm going to save it as a CSV file, and then I can open it up in Excel or whatever application I needed to be able to then put that information and map it back to whatever other form fields or mappings that I have done in the backend systems like SharePoint or whatever. So that, everybody, is how to create forms in InDesign and a quick high level how to do the forms in Acrobat. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to drop me a mail here on our Facebook page. You can email me on training@magentagroupsa.co.za. And we look forward to the next webinar, which will be looking at the various sign options that are available within the Adobe Acrobat suite. So thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.